Hi, everyone. Welcome to the June 2016 Deis community meeting. We've got, as usual, some fun stuff in store today. Last month, you heard from Matt Butcher as he shares some details about the status of the Helm project, going into its philosophy and design considerations. This month, we're going to have Michelle Noorali, also on the Helm team, give us a demo of the Alpha 1 release, which came out last week. Pretty cool. After that, we're going to do our first community presentation. I'm really excited for that. Yay! As some of you may know, Mozilla has been part of the Deis community for many months now, and I'm really excited to have Josh Mize from the Mozilla team share a bit about how they use Deis internally. That should be fun. Next up, after that, we're going to have Matt Boersma giving an update on the V1 LTS line. We recognize most of the community is still on V1, though we do talk about the new workflow stuff quite a bit. We take that fact very seriously, and Matt's going to share a little bit about what we have in store for the next release. Lastly, we're going to have Jason Hansen, our chief architect, who's going to share a bit about where we're at with Deis Workflow, status of the GA release. Spoiler alert, we're really, really close to getting something out the door for you guys. Very excited about that. And But before we jump into that, just really quick, if you, anyone on this call or anyone watching, after the call would like to share your experiences with Deis V1, Deis Workflow, or really any of the Deis components, please find us in the Deis community Slack. You can hit up myself, Gabber TV, or Jay Hansen specifically. We'd love to have you present at a future community meeting. I think it's really great to have folks in the community sharing their experiences. So, all right, let's do this. Michelle, over to you.
Great. My name is Michelle, and I work on the Helm team at Deis. We're really excited to demo the Alpha 1 release, which happened last week. We've gotten a lot of community feedback, and so I'll give you a quick demo of what we've done so far. So Helm is a tool for deploying and managing Kubernetes charts. Charts are packages of pre-configured Kubernetes resources. So if you're not familiar with Helm, we have a README that explains all of this. And if you are familiar with Helm Classic, the biggest difference between Helm Classic and Kubernetes Helm is the in-cluster server-side component that helps you manage your resources. All right, so if you want to get started, go to github.com/Kubernetes/Helm. You'll want to clone the repository and run a make bootstrap build, which will give you all the binaries you need in the bin directory, like so. All right, so I've already done that. And to set up the server side and the client side local configuration, you'd want to run Helm init. That'll be the first step. If you don't have your Kubernetes cluster up and running, you can also pass in this client-only flag. So I've already done that. So we'll get right to it and do what everyone pretty much wants to do with Helm is install Kubernetes resources, install charts to your Kubernetes cluster. So we have an example in here. So this is just an Alpine Linux pod that sleeps for like some number of seconds, and I'll install this to my cluster. When I run install, it'll give me a randomly generated release name. So a release is like an instance of a chart that's running in your cluster. Now let's see what actually happened and what got generated. So using kubectl, we see that there is the Alpine pod with the release name attached, and it's running. And we also have a tiller pod, which was created on the init step. So you can also do Helm list to see what releases you have. And you can filter as well using the list command if you have multiple releases. You can get, so if you have a partner or a team member who pushes something up and then goes on vacation, and you want to know exactly what they pushed up into the cluster, you can use the get command to see what manifests were generated, what a config they used to actually push up the release or create the release using the get command. So you'll do Helm get release name. You can also delete the release. And that'll just delete the Kubernetes resources. that you installed. And so we see it's terminating. And you can also get the status of your release using the status command. And here we see it's deleted. So you might be wondering, how do I find charts to actually install? So charts are stored in chart repositories, which can be accessed, which is basically anything that can access via HTTP and has a flat structure. So a chart repository contains packaged versioned charts and has a special file called an index.yaml file, which basically contains metadata for all the charts in the chart repository. So you can read more about that on the repository. We have just pushed up recently a lot more documentation on the chart repository workflow, and we'll be adding to that. So you get access to the official Kubernetes charts repository when you do the init step. So we've already added that, but you can also use the repo add command to add another repository. So if you have a friend who has a chart repository that they want to share, then you can add it using this command. Oops. Let's see, what else can you do? You can also fetch charts by passing in some URL, the full URL, the full path to a chart. And basically, let's do that real quick. Let's do the Alpine one. Oh, I think I forgot the bucket name. All right, so here we see that we have a package chart that we fetched wherever we are in our local file system. And we can also use that same fetch command and pass in the untar flag to untar it, and that'll give us an unpackaged Alpine directory, Alpine chart in our current directory. And when you're ready to actually create your own chart, you can use the create command to scaffold a new chart. So here we've created a chart called my chart. So let's see, let's cd into my chart. Let's ls and see what we have here. And so we have a chart.yaml file. The charts directory will contain dependencies, and then you have templates and a values.toml file, which will be actually changed to values.yaml pretty soon for consistency. So that's what I've got so far. Back to you.
Good stuff. Thanks for that, Michelle. You know, we're really excited to see the new version of Helm take off. You know, as I understand it, the Alpha 2 release is going to focus on some internal improvements. Come Alpha 3, we're going to be focusing on things like the update mechanism for how you update a chart in place, release to release. Yeah, we're really excited to see the progress taken off so quickly in the community around it. Really, you know, starting to embrace you know, Helm as the de facto package management solution for Kubernetes. So that's terrific. So thanks for that. Thanks for that, Michelle. At this point, I'd like to kick it over to Josh to talk about Deis at Mozilla. Josh, take it away.
Hi there. Yeah, we've been using Deis since, well, we actually started with Deis around 1.0.1 maybe, so like November 2014. But that was for dev. We went to production for our first small site as kind of a pilot project, and I want to say around February of 2015. Since then, we've over time added more and more sites. Now we've got several like major sites, like for example, if you go to www.mozilla.org, that is powered by 2 Deis clusters and behind a CDN. We make pretty heavy use of CDNs for all of our larger sites, but so only the uncached hits actually go back to our Deis clusters. We have 2 currently. They're both in AWS. One's in the US West region in Portland, the other one's in Ireland, and we use load balancing, DNS load balancing to balance between them and fail over in case of any issues with either at the application level, database level, maintenance, or cluster failure or region failure. We were using a service called Dynect for that initially. We also used that heavily whenever we were doing our initial rollout. We were load balancing between our legacy infrastructure and well, we had 2 data centers originally. We originally migrated from one of those data centers into AWS, and then now we're like sites like Mozilla.org and several other sites are now exclusively on Deis and AWS. We've got what we're doing now instead of Dynect is we're just using Route 53 traffic policies, and we're using latency rules for that. To keep things in sync, we actually have several CI solutions, continuous integration solutions. The main one we've been using is Jenkins, but we've also made use of Travis and Circle CI for various purposes. That's all for production. For dev, there are several developers that can do the standard git push thing to deploy, although mostly for production, we build our Docker images, test them, then push to a dev or staging environment, and then run a bunch of integration tests. And then once those are all done, we promote that to production if everything's successful. And that's all, we keep all of our scripts for doing all of that in our repos. So if you go, for example, if you're going to look at how we do www.mozilla.org, you can go to github.com/mozilla/bedrock, and there's a Docker directory and a Jenkins directory, and a bunch of scripts there. The other major service that uses it is our snippet service. So whenever you open up a new window in Firefox, there's a little snippet of HTML that might promote a new feature or campaign that we're running. That all is backed by Deis as well. Our team, my team, we recently got some new projects that we're starting to move over as well. So we've got developer.mozilla.org, or MDN is going to be moving over to that soon, probably later this year, within a few months, depending on other priorities. And we've got also we've absorbed support.mozilla.org as well, and a bunch of other smaller sites. One other thing, we do have a few customizations. We're running Deis v1 in production, and we're looking forward to Deis v2, but it'll be a little bit before we're actually running that in production yet. But we do have a couple of customizations to make sure that things work well for us. That's one of the major reasons we like Deis, because we could do customizations. For example, we add the X fleet conflicts flag to all of our units to ensure that they're deployed evenly amongst the nodes of the clusters, because there's no, that's one of the things that we're looking forward to Kubernetes handling for us with the soft affinity. We also, as I mentioned, we do our deploys from, like when we're doing a deploy from Jenkins, we actually push to, because we don't have a Deis push feature, and we don't want to have a dependency on like the Docker Hub for production deploys, we actually have our registries backed by S3 buckets, and our CI solution has write access to those CI buckets, and it runs a local Docker registry and push it, and we actually do a Docker push to that local instance, which uploads everything to the S3 buckets, and then we have a little bitty customization to enable that working whenever we do a Deis pull, to allow it to just run without having to try to pull from Docker Hub or Key, excuse me.
Cool. Thanks so much for sharing that. I don't know if you're open for any questions from the peanut gallery, but if anyone does have any questions, feel free to type them into chat. A couple things that that are interesting to me, that you described are, first of all, the use of A/B clusters, separate clusters, not for both in the same sort of production class, but separate versions of those clusters to facilitate another level of HA and availability. So that's definitely a very smart move. Also, interesting to hear yourselves and others who are using sort of Git push as sort of a developer, dev in the cloud, kind of a mentality. But when it comes to production, you're building and testing, Docker image artifacts and promoting those artifacts directly. That's, something we definitely see, folks gravitating towards. Very, very cool. It looks like we got a question here from Lawrence.
For syncing databases, for the services that require that, we just use RDS. MySQL can do cross-region replication for you. For those, we have to do basically a one cluster and one set of instances can do writes, and the other one is a read-only replica. That won't work for all use cases. For all the ones that we've got so far, that's been sufficient. And others like www.mozilla.org, we don't even actually depend on database replication. They actually have completely independent database instances, and all of this state, all of the data is actually pulled from external sources. Like we have a service that handles release notes that we pull by an API independently.
Wonderful. Well, unless there's any other questions, we're going to go ahead and move on to update on the V1 LTS release. Boersma.
Hi, everybody. There's not a whole lot to update you on. We did a LTS maintenance release 1.13.1 about a month ago. It actually had some significant fixes in it, so if you're still tracking that, you probably want it. We have another patch release coming up at an undefined time, probably in the next week or so, because the significant thing is CoreOS finally merged a pretty big update that was looming into the stable channel, and so that's there now. And thanks very much, Laurent, for pointing out what we were doing wrong there. I think it's going to pass now. So, the kernel got updated. They finally bumped Docker up to 1.10 and all that. So we'll test that, make sure it works. There's some build pack updates that will probably fold in. Other than that, not a lot of activity. So certainly if there's some bug that you're fighting against or, customizations like Josh was talking about that might be generally applicable, we're still open to changes like that, even though it's in maintenance mode. Yep, that's about all I have.
Great. Thanks, Boersma. Another thing I'll point out, we have some other larger customers we work with who are running on some older versions of the V1 LTS, and there was a actual fix that we had to cherry pick into one customer recently, which was provided by Laurent, the concurrent Deis publisher stuff. So again, thank you for that one. That one's really important for people who are using health checks, in the community, and it's saved some pretty large sites. So thanks for that. Great. And to talk a little bit about the future here, hand it over to Jason Hansen.
Thanks, Gabe. First, I wanted to send a big shout out to everyone in the community who's been kicking the tires throughout the beta process. Your feedback has been awesome. You've been keeping us honest. Found two regressions I'll talk about in the RC release candidate that we cut on the 25th. So thanks for keeping our nose to the rail. There are a few changes in RC1 and RC2 from beta 4 that I wanted to just highlight real quickly. We added private Docker registry support. And previously, we would pull the image down to the local on-cluster managed repository. But with beta 4, with RC1, we've switched that over to use Kubernetes image pull secrets by default. So the nodes will pull directly from the source rather than from the on-cluster managed repository. So that should be a transparent change to you if you've been using the private registry support. Just know that the flow is going to look slightly different. As well, we've also updated the environment variable that was Deis_release. I'm not sure if anyone's using it, but is now workflow_release. Our example apps use it, so it's just something to note. Health check might be spitting out a version or a release number, so just note that that's changed. One of the other bigger changes we've made is we've switched our base image from Alpine Linux to Ubuntu Slim. This was done for a number of reasons. One, it remediates the transient DNS issues that we've been seeing with Alpine 3.3. As well, it allows us to use things like Quay Keys security scanner for all of our releases. And fixes for CVEs should arrive a lot quicker into the Ubuntu mainline than they are for Alpine. We do have our base Docker image up on GitHub, Deis/Docker-base. So if you want to check out what we're doing there, we spent some time making sure that those are as slim as possible. The end results, the images are a little bit bigger, but I think the security visibility and the quicker releases with respect to CVEs kind of outweigh the size changes. The two regressions that we had for RC1, we were screwing up the port environment variable, doing some dumb things. That shows up if you have non-web process types. The first deploy would work, but any subsequent deploy would fail. So we merged a fix for that yesterday. And then we also discovered an issue with Postgres recovery after 2 failures. We were not taking a new baseline backup. So there was a window between a recovery and the next full backup, where if you had a 3rd failure in that window, things would get a little bit wonky. We're testing the fix for that today. So all going well, we will have an RC2 released by the end of the week, or at the end of today. And then I'll do a blog post about all of the stuff that I've talked about. Oh, last but not least, the most fun bit is RC1 is the first release that supports upgrades. So there are a few caveats. This isn't a zero downtime upgrade, but you won't need to reprovision everything. We'll be working with Helm and the platform to make that zero downtime over time. The few things that you do need, it requires off-cluster object storage configured and working, and you need Helm Classic version 0.8 or newer. As well as some properly annotated manifests. So we've updated the workflow docs. Go check them out. Look for the upgrading workflow doc that goes into gory detail about how the mechanism works and what you can expect there. So as far as the 2.0 release goes, things are looking pretty good. We are on target for next Wednesday, so June 8th. So keep kicking the tires, and I recommend you ice the champagne because we're coming around the bend here.
Great, thanks, Jason. If anyone has any final questions before we kick off, feel free to speak up or type them into chat here. I want to reiterate what Jason said. You know, as with Deis V1, as we were getting closer to the to the GA release, it was really the community support and the community testing that gave us the confidence that we needed to say, yeah, this is ready to go. The water's warm. Jump on in, and we're really we're really happy that the community has showed up here to help with a workflow in the same way. So thanks everyone again for that. And since I don't see any questions, I guess we will see you again, same time, same place next month. All right. Thanks everyone. Bye.